Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Horler and I'm here with John Mason of Thomson Reuters, and we're talking about best execution under MiFID II. Thank you for joining me.
Hi Emily, nice to be here.
What are the key challenges facing firms with regards to best execution under MiFID II?
I think an initial key challenge was getting to understand the slight variation in wording that was introduced between MiFID and MiFID II, where companies went from having to prove all reasonable steps to having to now prove all sufficient steps were taken in proving best execution. And that has meant that organisations have had to address what does that mean, what are those data points in being able to prove all sufficient steps. I think the other area has been the move into non-equity asset classes, where organisations no longer have to just look at all venues all doing the same thing, but they have to look across a range of venues, across a range of variables that ESMA stipulated as to what best execution means, those being price, costs, speed and likelihood of execution. Those vary dependent on the asset class, or can vary dependent on the asset class. So organisations need to ensure that they're comparing apples with apples, if you like, across the asset classes as and when that reporting takes place. So I think the additional reporting as well that the regulatory technical standards introduced, RTS 27 and RTS 28, both for venues and for the buy side, also brought challenges to organisations and venues to make sure that they were reporting accordingly. So I think there's a number of challenges that best execution and MiFID II has brought.
So how are service providers and vendors helping firms to address these challenges?
I think service providers are looking at a number of areas. MiFID II, of course, has brought an increase in the number of venues, greater fragmentation, if you like, of the markets across which transparency is now required. And therefore, service providers are having to work on how they can aggregate that data. Best execution, of course, is something that's measured across the industry. It's not something that's just measured on a per venue basis. By definition, it has to look across all of the venues to determine that a client has in fact received best execution. So service providers are looking, I think, in two areas. One is the data sourcing and data aggregation, so they can provide that data set against which the calculations can be run. The other area that service providers are looking at are then the calculation engines themselves to help provide the best execution analysis. That's something we ourselves are looking at to ensure that we can provide that for organisations, so that it's not just a matter of here's the data and you need to work that out for yourselves, but it's a more complete solution where we can provide both the data and the analytics capability as well.
What are the biggest changes you expect to see from these enhanced levels of best execution?
I think what we'll see is greater transparency of data, no question. That's one of the areas that best execution drives, is the need for that increase in transparency of data. But I think as a consequence of that, we will see greater analytics across the industry, not just for the regulatory demands that best execution needs, but the organisations then and the industry then looking at that increased data pool, if you like, that increased data set, and what else they can determine, what other analytics for business purposes they can run against it. So I think we'll see a more analytical organisation as a consequence.
John, thank you very much.
My pleasure, Emily. Thank you.
And thank you for watching.